Hello, everyone. Quick heads up before we start today's episode. The Global Agile Summit is happening on May the 4th. Yes, May the 4th, and even with a big blowout Star Wars party, you have to join. It will be online, and it's, like always, free to attend. We have 4 tracks this year that I'm really excited about, and I think you will too. Stick around to the end of the episode to know what they are. If you want to check it out already now, you can check it out at bit.ly/Global Agile 26. That's the numerals 2 and 6 at the end. So one more time, that's bit.ly/Global Agile 26. All one word, all lowercase, and 2 and 6 are the numerals 2 and 6. So stick around till the end of the episode and I'll tell you what's in store. But for now, on to today's episode. Hello, everybody. It's Success Thursday here on the podcast this week, and we have with us Nate Amidon. Hey, Nate, welcome back.
Happy to be here, Vasco.
So it's Success Thursday, of course. We'll talk about it in a second. But before that, share with us, what's your favorite Agile retrospective format and why?
Okay. This one's going to probably be different than what you expect, but for sure, my default favorite one is a meme retro.
Tell us about that.
Yeah. So, my opinion is that in a good retrospective, you want to get as much engagement and as much input from the team as possible. But you really want to find those deeper things. You really want to find the things that are, that could really cause that are really causing issues and could be for opportunities for improvement. And sometimes just doing the same retros all the time can get really tiring and can honestly get a little boring. So a meme retro is when you give everyone about 5 or 10 minutes to go on the internet and find a meme that describes the last sprint. And it obviously has to be appropriate. Okay. But everyone goes and finds theirs. And then we just go around the room and they share their meme. Okay. And all they have their computers with them and they share their meme and then explain why they picked this meme for the sprint. Now it's a different angle, but it really starts to give you indicators of where there's things that are issues. And it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely. One great metric for retros is laughs per minute, because when you're laughing, you can talk about serious stuff without feeling offended. And that's very important. Absolutely. Doesn't create, this resistance to acknowledging and accepting insights and information from others.
Yeah.
I really like that meme retrospective. We have been we're organizing the Global Agile Summit in May 4th, as the listeners already know, and we have a whole series of posts that are all memes about Agile adoption. So check it out. Check it out on LinkedIn. Right, and memes away. We want to do that because we want teams to succeed, so that we can succeed as Scrum Masters. So because you run a team of Scrum Masters, I'm really interested to hear your take. How do you talk to your team about what success means for Scrum Masters?
Yeah. So I think at the core, success for a Scrum Master is maximizing value of the product through the organization. And I think that's a full stop statement. Okay. Because for me, like everything else is a leading or lagging indicator, and we go to clients, right? And we'll charge for bringing a Scrum Master in, and we need to prove our value to the organization. And I think that's how we look at it, and I think that's how all Scrum Masters, in some regard, should look at it. And so, but what does that mean practically? Okay, it means that the first thing you should do as a Scrum Master is know why your team exists. And then everyone on the team should know why your team exists. Like, what happens if your team doesn't show up to work for a month? That's a good question to ask if you don't know what it is your team does. And it sounds basic, and I wish it was basic, but it's not. It's not that basic. Like, people need to really be clear on what is the purpose of the team and what value, what customer, what user. Maybe you're a platform team or a data team, and where does that data get used? So define what that means, and then try to work with your product team and your organization to figure out how we measure if we're getting better at doing that. Like, how do we know? It's one thing to talk about how well we're delivering, but you can go really fast in the wrong direction. So how do we know we're actually on the right vector? And so I like to have people on my team figure that out and try to figure out a way to measure that if we can for the team. Now, sometimes it's really hard, and I get it, but that's a good team exercise. And then once you know where you're going in the right direction, focus on the more leading indicator stuff, kind of like your thrust, like how fast you're going, those types of metrics, to become as efficient as possible in the right direction. So maximizing value for the product. I think if you're a Scrum Master on the team, you should be able to show that the team is adding more value relative to how much the organization is paying for your position.
Yeah, I really like that. What happens if your team doesn't show up for a month? How do you know you're getting closer to that? Maybe a year ago or so, I wrote a blog post on my Substack called the OTOG, or OTOG principle: one team, one goal, right? And it sounds so simple, but it's quite amazing how often I go into teams and I realize that their own goal, as they describe it themselves, is to write more code or test more code or design more screens, whatever that they're doing. And that is so reducing of the potential, the human potential that is there in the room, right? Because if all you can do is write more code, that's what you're going to focus on. What I tell my teams is the opposite. It's like, code is the last thing you want to do. Code is a liability. You want to solve problems for customers with the least possible amount of code changes. Right? Sometimes you need to change the code. That happens to be most of the times for people working with software, but you don't always need to do that. And every time you solve a problem without adding more code, you're actually adding a lot of value, because it's maintenance work that doesn't need to be done in the future, right? So what are your tips, Nate? How do you help teams? And of course, you have a military background. I'm pretty sure for you, it was quite natural to have that clarity of goal, because that's how it works in the military, or at least most of the time. So how do you help teams kind of realize that they really need to have a clear direction, and the direction should not be just write more code?
So some teams have it. Some teams it's super clear, and some teams it's not. But I want to know that it's clear, and I want to make sure everybody knows that it's clear. A fun thing to do is to just ask, 3 people on the team separately, without, in a separate conversation, what does your team do and who do they do it for, and just see if they're the same answer. I mean, that's a good exercise you can do as a Scrum Master, especially if you're just getting to a new team. And then it takes consistent communication. So a lot of times we'll say alignment, communication, and process. We'll do it in that order, but getting aligned on the goal and then communicating it effectively. Because just because or the lead engineer knows, or the product owner knows, everybody doesn't know. And so when you have that clarity of what it is you do, and you're focused on the end goal, then you start thinking about problems differently, to your point, which is, maybe it isn't about just writing the new feature. Maybe it's actually taking the time to determine if this is actually a good feature, right? Like, just because product says this is the feature doesn't mean a lot of engineers know the user just as well, if not better, than the product owners. Like, it's a team. And so it really drives better collaboration and communication. And I guess the other thing I want to say about this topic that I think is so important is that a Scrum Master, in my mind, isn't an engineering or just the Scrum team coach, right? I think if as a Scrum Master, we're going to determine success by the value increase of the product, then you have to take ownership in the whole idea to deployed pipeline. And that might mean getting into a product management world a little bit, figuring out how prioritization is. Anywhere you can help improve things, working with other teams that are big dependency, driving in the QA or the release schedules or the CI/CD pipe, like your scope of responsibility is value of the product through the system. And you happen to be working as a Scrum Master on a team. And that mindset isn't super common, I think, among the standard Scrum Masters.
Yeah, I really like that approach. And I remember the episode we recorded a while back, and I'll put the link in the show notes. You talked about something that I think would be useful to explore also here, which was the brief, execute, debrief cycle. And we were just talking about how important it is to have the team know what they are trying to achieve. So walk us through the brief, execute, debrief cycle from that perspective, helping teams know what they are trying to achieve.
Right. And so if you have the ultimate goal of the team, like why the team exists, then when new things come up, right, we should spend the time to really explain what it is we're doing and how it connects to that goal. And then what's the plan? And a brief, in my mind, isn't whenever I would brief in the Air Force, flying a mission, it wasn't just a one-way flow down of information. It was me saying, here's what I think we're doing. And then my crew would ask questions and come up with different ideas on how to do things. So it's a collaborative brief. And then execute, be as efficient as possible to get to that objective. And then debrief is, well, what did we do? Where did we screw up? and then try to make sure you don't do that again next time. And so that cycle, just is a continual thing. And I think, Scrum is set up like that, right? I mean, there's sprint planning, then there's the daily stand-ups and the execution, and then the retrospectives, right? And so, Scrum and the military have a lot of parallels.
Yeah, absolutely. And I really like how simple and fractal that concept is, right? Because as you said, you have brief, execute, debrief at the program level, at the sprint level, and even at the daily level, especially if you do a daily in the beginning of the day, or at least somehow there is a brief of what we're going to do today, right? Like if it's not, maybe it was yesterday in the afternoon when you had the daily stand-up, or maybe it was today morning when you had the daily stand-up, but that also happens. And I think that it's so important to highlight this idea that even when you do this, even when you do the brief and execute, the debrief is critical. Right. And that's one of the things that I don't see many teams do. The daily stand-up has 3 questions, just the default question, right? And the default questions are all about brief, execute, debrief as well. And if you start kind of looking into this, you see this brief, execute, debrief cycle at all levels, because it generates alignment and coordination by default, right? That's why it's there. And I think this links beautifully to that reason or definition of success for Scrum Master, right? Like just doing that cycle, brief, execute, debrief at multiple layers, we are helping the team have a clear direction, have agreement that enables collaboration, and learn from that execution.
Yeah. And you debrief so you can get better at executing, and so you can improve the value generated through the product, or Absolutely. Whatever that team owns, right? Maybe it's not product, but whatever the team exists for, improving the value generation for the organization.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that with us, Nate.
Absolutely.
Hi there, friends. Thanks for sticking around till the end of the episode. So let me tell you what's coming. On May 4th, we're running the Global Agile Summit. It will be online, and I want you there. This year, we have 4 tracks, and each one is built around real conversations with practitioners. No slides, no keynote theater, just honest interviews with people doing the work, just like you. The first track is AI in organizations, where practitioners show what actually works. No hype, just AI that makes your Monday better. Happy Monday, everybody. And then we have the people track, honest conversations about putting humans at the center of how we work and keeping them there. And third is Agile in construction. And yes, I really mean brick and mortar construction. Lean and Agile actual job sites. Field leaders removing waste, teams transforming how buildings get built. Stay tuned for what I think will be a super track on Agile in construction. And the fourth track is Agile in gaming, how game studios ship without burning out. Agile inside the creative pressure cooker. Over the years, we've had more than 12,000 participants since 2017, the time of the first summit organized with the podcast. And this year, we're making it easier than ever to join. You can register for free and get access to the summit sessions live during the event week. That's May 4th to May 6th. Or you can grab the practitioner pass and get immediate access to last year's keynotes from Jürgen Appelo, Gojko Adzic, and Mirete Kangas. Right now, even before the summit starts. So grab your practitioner pass and start learning today. Head on over to bit.ly/Global Agile 26. That's 26, the numerals 2 and 6. Sign up and I'll see you on May the 4th. And one more time, here we go, bit.ly/Global Agile 26. All lowercase, all one word, and 26, that's the numeral 2 and the numeral 6. I'll see you on the conference floor.